ABB Power Generation's Transport Department KWCS in Baden, together with Jumbo Shipping, commenced its involvement in the Lumut, Malaysia power station substantially before the final contracts were signed. Over the past few years, the transport tasks for 3 power plants in Malaysia were successfully carried out under the leadership of Mr. Lepori and Mr. Merli of the Baden-based Transport Department. In order to provide the background for the sales negotiations for Lumut, they performed detailed site surveys in February 1994 and determined the transportation and documentation needs and the likely costs for smooth, timely and safe performance of the required transport functions. As with the previous Malaysian power projects, the basis of their approach was to establish a team which could provide all the required services in a cost-effective fashion and which would assure that risks were minimized and unexpected difficulties resolved in a spirit of cooperation. The team establishment was in close cooperation with ABB Malaysia and through ABB Malaysia with owner of the project Segari Energy Ventures. The first gas turbine and generator set arrived at Lumut Anchorage early June 1995 and were safely discharged onto Jumbo's heavy lift barge JB1. While the 230 tons generator was lashed and secured, the 343 tons gas turbine was lifted with 2 mast cranes working in tandem from the lower hold onto the supports placed on deck of the barge. The next day the barge was towed to a specially constructed ro-ro jetty on the beach of the Lumut power station. Directly after the safe discharge and transport of the first gas turbine and generator to site early June, the second generator arrived at the beach jetty. The shipment and on-carriage was carried out by companies who had worked together on previous Malaysian projects, whereas others were selected to best facilitate the cooperation with the project owners and with the governmental authorities whose trust and cooperation are so important to assure the absence of administrative delays. Slowly, the second barge, loaded with a 230 tons generator, approached the beach jetty. Due to the swell, each time the jetty harbor had to be deepened to the required depth prior to arrival of the barge. Because of the limited draft, the barge was pulled inside the jetty by means of tractor units which were positioned ashore. The on-carriage to site is the key unique technical element of the transport job. For Lumut, the project team had decided to construct a ro-ro jetty on the beach of the job site in order to ensure cost-effective and safe delivery of critical path components by heavy lift vessel as close as possible to the site and using a flat-top heavy lift barge for the last part of the journey. When the barge was safely ballasted to the ground, the ro-ro ramps were placed and the 12-axle line hydraulic trailer with 144 tires was maneuvered under the generator, which was placed on elevated supports on deck. The technical details of the transport concept were developed in close coordination with the staff of ABB and the transportation contractors likely to be involved. The history of successful cooperation on previous Malaysian projects substantially shortened the time required to reach agreement in this respect. However, nevertheless, numerous visits to Malaysia and many meetings in Europe preceded the final written form of the transport manual. The hydraulic trailer lifted the generator from its supports, and after lashing and securing, the load was ready to be rolled off from the barge. When moving critical and expensive items like this generator, the insurance aspects are of vital importance. Long before drafting, contacts were made to the insurance company covering the risks of the project. They are very much concerned that the subcontractors and methods chosen for the critical element of transport minimize the risks of damage or delay and observe their requirements regarding critical path components. The insurance cover provided by the subcontractors is meticulously reviewed and its extent maximized. The insurance steps take place simultaneously with the drafting and signature of the contract documents. Our second generator has in the meantime been pulled up against the 5% gradient of the transport road on site and is maneuvered in front of the machine hall. To maneuver the generator adjacent to the skid beams in the machine hall, the tractor is positioned at the rear end of the trailer, and by means of a push bar the generator is slowly pushed inside the building. With another heavy lift vessel, the 230 tons transformers arrived in Port Klang and were loaded on supports on deck of the jumbo barge 1. The general cargo for the two trafos was loaded on the same barge, which was towed to the Lumut beach jetty the following day. Since the ocean transport, barging and transport until delivery alongside foundation are in the same hands, many risks of coming out of synchronization are excluded. However, the team approach assures that the site also knows well in advance when the pieces will arrive and can plan accordingly. When the barge is moored correctly in front of the jetty, she is ballasted to ground, and preparations are made for the roll-off operation. On site, the erection of the so-called harp assemblies for the waste heat boilers is carried out. Work progresses as planned. The steam turbine building of Block A, which forms part of this so-called combined cycle power plant, is well underway. The first transformer is loaded on the trailer and can now be transported to its final foundation. The same methods are applied again, using the trailer's hydraulic suspension system to load the transformer from the elevated supports on deck, hereby eliminating the use of cranes. A steel plate covers the gap between barge deck and quay edge. The transformer was maneuvered over the with steel plates prepared area alongside its foundation and offloaded on timber supports by means of the hydraulic suspension system. An impact recorder, which was mounted on top of the transformer, was taken down and inspected. With this device, the ABB engineers could exactly check the maximum amplitude of shocks which were encountered during the long journey from Europe to Malaysia. In the second half of 1995, all major components for Block A of the Lumut power station were successfully shipped and transported to site. Several heavy lifts came from Polish manufacturers and were pre-carried to Rotterdam by coaster vessel. This 236-ton stator was transported with a special rail car to Gdansk and loaded on board of a coaster vessel with a 300-ton floating crane. In Rotterdam, the stator was loaded with other heavy lifts from Mannheim and Portugal on board of Jumbo Shipping's heavy lift carrier for shipment to Lumut in Malaysia. All other heavy lifts for Block B are planned to be shipped and transported to site early 1996. To make a success of this project involved careful planning and teamwork between ABB Baden's Transport Department KWCS, ABB Power Generation Kuala Lumpur and the site management in close cooperation with Jumbo Shipping and local subcontractors.